Let's talk a little bit today about the ASUS PadPhone X. I've been using this as my daily driver device for a little over a month now, aside from the time that I was in London with the Ubuntu Phone event, and then the time after that I spent with the Ubuntu Phone itself. Now, just in case you're not familiar with it, the PadPhone X has a 5-inch 1080p display, the Snapdragon 800 processor, 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of built-in storage, a 2,330 milliamp hour battery, a micro SD card slot under here with the battery, and it does run KitKat. If that weren't enough though, you also get this extra 9-inch 1080p display with front-facing speakers and an almost 5,000 milliamp hour battery to go along with it. Now, right off the bat, I'm gonna go ahead and mention that for this little combo, new on eBay, I paid $150. So my opinion, my final result might be a little bit skewed based off of that. As for the phone itself, the specs are pretty similar to the Nexus 5, so you might expect the performance to be pretty similar to that as well. For most everyday tasks, it does work pretty well, but I've noticed there are quite a few software glitches. A lot of them have to do with the built-in AT&T software and the fact that I'm not an AT&T customer. But even still, there are some more issues with things like rendering web pages in Chrome, the YouTube app just not working with the latest updates. But it does work fine if you roll back all of those updates. But that means you don't get any of the new greatest features there. And there were just some delays in the camera and things like that, and just overall bugginess that made the phone a bit of a chore to use day in and day out. I did a light bit of gaming on it as well, and while it's not a great performer, I was able to play the games that I like without the device getting too hot. It did get a little bit warm, but not too bad. Now, the biggest hassle I've had with this, as I mentioned, AT&T software, was the AT&T address book. I know I could root it, easily get rid of it, disable all of that, uninstall it, freeze it, whatever, but I shouldn't have to do that. Anytime you try to open the contacts, you either get stuck on this loading AT&T address book screen for a very long time, or you get the contacts has stopped message, which really sucks if you're trying to open the dialer and start calling somebody and it crashes. So realistically, a custom ROM would be a very welcome sight on this device. Unfortunately, custom ROM isn't exactly an option at this point, thanks to this little guy. The last time I looked, there is one custom ROM available, but it doesn't work with the tablet dock, which is about half the reason you'd want to use this device in the first place. In terms of build quality, it's all right. Both the phone and the dock are kind of plasticky, kind of thick, and they can be a bit creaky when you grip them in certain ways. But I haven't had any real concerns about anything breaking so far. It's very solid feeling. As far as the camera on the device, that's definitely a bit of a mixed bag as well. In decent lighting, it actually takes pretty decent images from this 13 megapixel rear-facing camera. But you would expect that out of just about any phone nowadays. When you're in lower lighting or when you have to use the flash, you probably ought to just forget about it. It's got a built-in HDR mode for photos, and that works okay as well, but again, it can't save the low-light images. You can only do so much with HDR. For video at 1080p, the video looks pretty decent, but with no stabilization, it can get kind of jerky when you're doing it handheld. And don't bother with the 4K mode. It's something like 17 frames per second, so it won't actually be really watchable footage. Which does bring me to the issue that I had with the camera, and again, that comes back to the software, as I mentioned earlier. More often than not, it took so long for the camera software to get started up, and once it got started up, a ridiculously long amount of time to start recording video or to take shots, that I didn't even bother pulling out my phone more often than not. I tested out the Google camera on it a little bit as well, and that does help a bit, but you lose out on things like HDR mode, and the video mode still does take a little while to start up. Next up, the dock itself. As I mentioned in the unboxing, it is very nice to be able to just slide the phone into the back of a larger screen so you can continue with everything that you've got. You don't have to pay for an LTE specific tablet, you just use what you've got with what's already on your phone. The problem again there goes back to software. You can do all of the things so that when you slot the phone into it, whatever app you've got running keeps running, but most non-ASUS apps don't really work very well with that, unless, like I said, they were specifically designed for this device. So generally, I just end up telling it to relaunch the app instead of having it automatically try to make it run. Having the front-facing speakers on the dock was very, very nice, but the speakers just, they aren't really blowing me away. I think I said exactly that during the unboxing. The speakers are all right, they're not amazing. It is definitely infinitely better than having this one terrible rear-facing speaker on the phone itself, but again, it's not saying a huge amount. I've heard some really good front-facing speakers in other devices, and these, they're middle of the road. And the last thing to talk about realistically is battery life. For the phone itself, it's really not that great. 2300 milliamp hours means the average use for me, the phone is regularly down to about 35% at the end of the day. Granted, it does survive the day, usually, So that's a plus, and you can always stick it in the dock for extra charging, or you can use wireless charging. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention it does wireless charging as well? I didn't realize that when I first did the unboxing, or even for the first couple of days after that. On a whim, I took the phone and I put it down on a Qi charger, and the charging LED flickered, which kind of confused me at the time. I, of course, went to their website, did a little more reading that I should have done right out of the box, and I found out that it does support wireless charging, but only the PMA standard, not the Qi standard. So one $10 order to Amazon, and a couple of days later, this Duracell power mat showed up, and I've been decently pleased with it so far. I've been charging wirelessly the grand majority of the time ever since. That's really one of the main redeeming qualities of the device for me, that even though the battery life isn't really great, it's not really even that good, I can always just slap it down on the charging pad when it's plugged in, charge it for a little while with that, and get a little boost of battery life without having to fight with USB cables or carry around batteries or anything like that. Of course, you can't take this on the road with you, but when I'm sitting at my desk or something, just plop it down on the table next to me, I'm good to go. So to wrap things up, coming at this as a person who paid $150 for this device, even though it doesn't sound like it, I've been decently pleased with it. I would definitely love some updated software, some software bugginess fixes, and I'm almost certainly gonna have to root this thing and stamp out all that AT&T crapware that comes on it if I want to keep using it. But as I said, I've been using this as a daily driver for a few weeks now, and it has been quite usable. As far as the recommendations, I'd say if you can get your hands on it for less than 200 bucks, and you're looking for this sort of phone tablet combination that you can just slot one into the other and you've got a 9-inch 1080p tablet with 4G connectivity, it's not a bad option one way or another. If you're looking for just an inexpensive device, I'd say there are probably better options out there, or better options that are coming out soon, like the Asus ZenFone 2, which starts at right around 200 bucks. Now I know I've probably left a bunch of things out, but I got covered, I think, the things that I wanted to get covered. You've effectively got a device that's really crippled by the software, had a huge amount of potential, and realistically, the Asus devices I've used in the past, that seems to be kind of their way of doing things, unfortunately. When the Asus ZenFone 2 comes out, I'm probably going to try to get my hands on one as well, just to try it, see how the software is. I've heard good things so far, but that is going to be about all for me for today. I'm going to keep this, so if you have any questions about it or anything you'd like to see me try on it, definitely let me know down in the comment section below. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button down below the video if you like this video, and subscribe to receive more content as soon as it becomes available, and I'll see you next time.